Traditional food quality assurance was inherently reactive. It relied entirely on end product testing, waiting until a production batch was finished to determine if it was safe to consume. This creates a physical paradox. Testing every single unit to guarantee absolute safety destroys the entire inventory. However, relying on random sampling leaves an unacceptable margin of unseen risk. In the 1960s, the NASA spaceflight program reached the limits of this sampling approach. The agency required absolute zero-defect food safety for its crews. A foodborne illness in orbit would have catastrophic consequences for the mission. These high stakes rendered traditional risk margins completely unacceptable. To solve this, NASA collaborated with the Pillsbury Company. They adapted analytical failure prediction techniques from the engineering industry and applied them directly to food production. This engineering collaboration birthed the HACCP framework. The system anticipates and designs out physical and biological failure before it ever occurs, moving past the need for reactive testing. HACCP stands for Hazard Analysis Critical Control Point. This rigorous, mathematically driven management system integrates with foundational hygiene protocols to ensure comprehensive process safety. The system requires mapping every physical stage of a production process. This allows engineers to identify and isolate the exact nodes where hazards are likely to emerge. Today, implementing this risk-based system is a non-negotiable legal requirement for food businesses operating in global supply chains. Next, we will deconstruct the 12 stages and 7 underlying principles of a functional HACCP system. The governing philosophy is definitive. Safety must be engineered into the production process from the outset. HACCP operates on top of an existing operational foundation. Establishing adequate staff training and good manufacturing practices is a prerequisite for designing the system. The first 3 stages involve assembling a multidisciplinary team to define the product. This group categorizes the product's chemical composition, its intended use, and the specific vulnerabilities of its target consumers. Stage 4 requires constructing a technical flow diagram. This sequential map captures every procedure, from raw material intake to final packaging. In Stage 5, the team conducts an on-site confirmation of this diagram, physically matching the theoretical map against the actual factory floor. Theoretical process maps frequently miss physical discrepancies that occur during night shifts or different operational hours. An inaccurate process map structurally compromises the entire safety system. If the initial layout misses a step, the subsequent hazard analysis will be fundamentally flawed. By focusing on a single processing step, like thermal processing, we enter Stage 6, the first official HACCP principle, hazard analysis. Within this framework, a hazard is defined as a biological, chemical, or physical agent with the potential to cause adverse health effects for the consumer. These hazards include biological pathogens, chemical threats like natural toxins, and physical hazards like metal fragments. The team must systematically list every potential hazard expected to occur at the thermal processing step. Each hazard undergoes a dual metric evaluation. The team weighs the statistical probability of its occurrence against the severity of its resulting health effect. The objective is to isolate significant hazards where elimination or reduction is essential to the safety of the food. Hazard analysis acts as a vital filtering mechanism. It focuses engineering resources on actual, high-probability threats rather than negligible risks. Identifying prioritized hazards leads to Principle 2, determining critical control points, or CCPs. These are the exact steps where control is applied to reduce hazards to an acceptable level. This decision tree is the mathematical logic used to prove a control point. Question 1 asks, do preventative control measures exist? If safety requires control but no measure exists, the production process must be modified. Question 2 evaluates if the step specifically eliminates or reduces the hazard. A yes confirms it as a critical control point. Question 3 assesses whether contamination could exceed acceptable limits at this point. Question 4 determines if a subsequent factory step will eliminate that hazard instead. If no later step exists to mitigate the risk, the current step becomes a confirmed CCP. These dynamics can be complex. A single hazard may require multiple consecutive CCPs, while one well-placed CCP might control several different hazards simultaneously. The decision tree transforms subjective safety concerns into a clearly defined control architecture. Following identification, Principle 3 requires establishing critical limits for every verified CCP. Critical limits are predetermined numerical values, marking the strict boundary between acceptability and unacceptability, requiring precise data. Principle 4 dictates establishing a continuous monitoring system to ensure the CCP stays securely within these limits during operation. The system prioritizes rapid, physical, and chemical online measurements. Lengthy microbiological lab testing cannot provide the instant data required to maintain control on an active factory line. Principle 5 involves establishing corrective actions. These are pre-planned operational protocols, triggered the moment monitoring data indicates a deviation from the critical limits. The operational response is immediate. It requires the physical isolation and proper disposition of any affected product before it can progress down the manufacturing line. Measurable critical limits and the authority to execute instant corrective action are what make a CCP a functional physical safeguard. Principle 6 is verification. Establishing the system is only the first step. It requires frequent, independent auditing to prove the controls remain effective over time. These verification activities, such as product sampling and method reviews, must be executed by personnel distinct from those performing the daily monitoring. Principle 7 is documentation and record-keeping. This generates a permanent, reviewable audit trail of all monitoring results and corrective actions taken at each control point. This documentation alerts managers to when a total system review is necessary. Any change to raw materials, equipment, or packaging invalidates the current plan and requires an immediate update. A HACCP framework functions as a living, dynamic management system tied directly to the physical reality of the factory floor. If we look past the individual factory to the global supply chain, these 7 principles serve as the operational core for international food commerce. The International Organization for Standardization developed ISO 22000 to harmonize these food safety requirements across national borders. Major retailer-led certification schemes, such as BRC, SQF, and IFS, enforce these rigorous standards globally. They require all independent suppliers to maintain third-party audited compliance. To organize this network, the Global Food Safety Initiative benchmarks these certification schemes. This ensures they all share a common baseline foundation of engineering and auditing requirements. Ultimately, absolute food safety at a global scale is the direct result of mathematically verified, rigorously monitored process engineering.